We need to wake up conquering our day. We need to wake up defeating our day, not letting our day defeat us. Every day is for us to win. We're more than conquerors. We're called to win every day. Stop settling for half wins. Stop it. Stop settling for that.
Listen, you have a choice every day to stay defeated or to get up and walk in victory. It's up to you. My victory is my responsibility. He said on the cross, it is finished. Greatest statement in the history of mankind. It's done. Now it's my job to accept it and apply it and start living in it. Listen, God came to give you life and life to the fullest. You either have a theology that Jesus wants you to be miserable, angry, mad, frustrated with life, miserable to be around, not happy with anybody, not happy in any season, or you believe that God came to give you life and life to the fullest. And sometimes I'm not saying that life's gonna be easy. I'm saying you have the choice to walk in victory no matter what's going on around you.
Very many of us are facing our own battles, and when we look at them, our tendency is to get insecure when we're facing that difficulty in our marriage or in our finances or in our ministry or in our organizations in which we're involved, or whatever it is that you may be facing in your life. It is our tendency to look at it and hang our head in discouragement because we feel overwhelmed just looking at it. But when you really understand what the enemy thinks about you, it changes the way you face your battles. You need to know that every time he sees a daughter or a son of the Most High, he is shaking in his boots because he really recognizes what your potential is. You need to know that even if you don't believe every single thing that the Word of God declares to be true about you, the enemy does. He knows, even if you don't believe it, that you have been forgiven. He knows that you have already been given the victory. He knows that you have been made competent by the Spirit of God. He knows that he is already under your feet. Listen to me. He knows that he can form a weapon against you, but he's very clear on the fact that it will never prosper. He understands and knows and believes every single thing that the Word of God declares to be true about you and about me. He knows that you have been given power and authority that he will never, ever have access to. He knows that you have been made competent by the Spirit of God. What a shame it would be, y'all, for the enemy to believe more about our potential than we do. What a shame it would be for you and I to face our battles with insecurity and lack of courage because we don't even understand as clearly as the enemy of our soul does how potent and powerful we really are. So it doesn't mean that your troubles will change, your battles will change. It just means that the way you face it changes when you recognize that when God is for you, who can be against you?
Could I tell you that maybe your victory is motion activated? Maybe the thing that you're waiting for God to do, God's saying, you gotta rise up. You gotta rise up on the inside and you gotta do something on the outside. Do something that you think you cannot do. Overcome what the enemy has told you is impossible. Rise up in victory. It's time for you to start living the life that God's called you to live. John 10 verse 10 says the thief came to steal, kill, and destroy. You know what the devil wants? The devil wants you to stay defeated, destroyed, struck down, thinking that it'll never turn around. But Jesus said, I came to give you life and life to the fullest.
I've never yet woken up in the morning and had the enemy say to me, before you get up today, I want to remind you of all your good qualities. But if you're listening to the Lord, He'll tell you that. What God is doing is always greater than anything the devil is ever doing. I'm going to say that again. What God is doing is always greater than anything that the devil is doing.
The devil's desire is for you to quit. The devil's goal is to get you to stop believing, stop trusting, stop worshiping, stop praising God, stop serving Jesus, stop walking with God, stop talking with God. The devil wants you, he doesn't even care if you're saved. He just wants you to shut up and be quiet and live in darkness and be depressed and give up and quit on your harvest, quit on your family, quit on your loved ones, quit on yourself. The devil's a quitter. And he wants you to be a quitter too. So what he tries to do is paint a hopeless, dark picture of your life so that you will be discouraged, so that you will feel lonely, and so that you will feel depressed. The truth is that Jesus destroyed the works of the devil, but we lose sight of that at times because we can't see beyond what's right in front of us at times. We can't see beyond our anxiety. We can't see beyond our loneliness. We can't see beyond our fear. We can't see beyond those moments of depression, those feelings of darkness.
Your enemy, Satan, wants you to be transfixed on the bad times and let the bad times eat up the good times. But here's the great thing. When Jesus steps into your life, He's the good thing. He's the best thing that ever happened to me. And suddenly, He stops the bad. And wherever bad has happened, please listen to me. Where sin abounds, grace does much more abound. Where failure abounds, forgiveness much more abounds. Don't let the enemy get you to maximize the bad and minimize the good. God is for you, and God is with you, and God is going to help you. Don't let the bad destroy the good in your life.
Find the good and focus on it. In Hebrews 12:2, it says, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. You have a choice of what to look at. What are you going to set your mind on today? Good things that are going to lift you up and build you up, or things that are going to make you sad and depressed and discouraged and tear you down? The more you whatever you focus on is what becomes the biggest thing in your life. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. There are bad things, but they're not stronger than good things, because everything that God has is greater than anything the enemy has to offer. So if we focus on the godly things and the good things and the positive things, they're going to drown out and swallow up the bad things in life.
Weeping may last for the night, but as joy comes in the morning, it's time to move forward. You've cried long enough about this defeat. Just because you lost the game doesn't make you a loser. Just because you had one mistake doesn't make you a failure. Failure is not final. Rise up and move forward. Psalm 42, David said, why am I discouraged? Why is my soul downcast? Why am I letting depression ruin my days? If I only get one life, and if the average lifespan in this current season is 75 to 80 years, why am I wasting my years, my days, constantly depressed, discouraged, miserable, making everyone else around me feel miserable? David said, I'm gonna put my hope back in the Lord. I'm gonna put my trust back in God. See, victory begins when you surrender to Jesus. I can't have victory over my situation until I let Jesus have victory over my attitude, until I let Jesus have victory over my heart. It's time to wave your white flag to God and say, I'm tired of fighting this on my own. I'm tired of pushing you away from me. Lord, I surrender. Have the victory over my life. When God gets the victory over you, God will give you the victory over that situation.
You know how you win the battle, my friend? You begin that battle on your knees, and you face the battle from a stance of victory. To make a choice that even though the circumstance has not changed, that you are going to thank God in advance for the victory that you're anticipating Him to give. It's on your Monday mornings and your Tuesday afternoons and your Wednesday on the job and your Thursday running errands and your Friday out with your friends and your Saturdays. It is in the regular rhythms of our everyday life, in the face of our battles, when we choose to get down on our knees and stretch our hands up high and say, thank you, Lord, in advance for the victory that I know that you are going to grant me. I mean, you are looking at the problem. Your marriage is still a disaster. Your child is still living in a way that is not congruent with the way that you raised them. You're still having a hard time with your boss on your job. When you are still looking at the problem, but you choose to worship your great God, it is an affront to the enemy. It lets him know that you are still, your allegiance is still firmly planted to God. When you worship God, you roll out the red carpet. That's what worship does. It rolls out the red carpet for God Himself to descend and march into your circumstances. And the enemy knows that. That's why he wants you to do everything except begin the battle on your knees.
I don't want to waste another day of my life. Because I walked through depression, man. I stood on a bridge. I had suicidal thoughts. And you know what? It's not God's will for us to live like that. For anyone in the room who's like, I just don't buy this theology of good news. What theology are you buying then? Because the Bible says this is the good news. Something good is going to happen to you because Jesus lives inside you. And guess what? Satan doesn't like it. So he's going to bring something bad against you. And what are you going to do? You're going to shake it off and you're going to keep walking in victory. You're going to keep moving forward. This is why Paul said, I'm struck down, but I'm not destroyed. Yeah, I'm perplexed. I am perplexed. Life's unfair. But listen, I might be persecuted, but I'm getting through this. I'm moving forward. I'm convinced that I can live in these light momentary troubles. They do not compare to the glory that is awaiting us. And I know he's working all things together for good. And I'm more than a conqueror. And if God is for me, who can be against me? So I'm putting my faith not in myself. Jesus gives us the victory, not our personality, not our connections, not our talents, not our strengths, not what people think about us, but what God says about us. We're fearfully and wonderfully made. We're children of the King. We have the victory through Jesus Christ who lives in us. Your temporary setback is not a permanent vision for your life. Don't let a temporary season of loss or pain become the permanent attitude you carry, the permanent vision you have for your life. You can keep looking in your past, but as long as you look in your past, you'll never see your future. You can't step into the future victory that God has for you if you're holding on to a past defeat. Just because you had one loss doesn't mean you're a loser. Just because you missed it one time, just because you dropped the ball doesn't mean that God will never hand the ball back to you again. God has a future for you. The enemy wants to keep you in a shoulda, coulda, woulda place.
You see, sometimes we identify with what we're going through rather than identifying with who we are in the midst of it. You're going through some tough stuff. You're going through some tough times. But like one of the preachers said years ago, tough times never last, but tough people do. Life happens. Stuff happens. But you have to decide, yet in all these things, Paul says, I can add up everything that's ever been done against me and everything that's against me now, yet in all these things, I'm more than a conqueror through Christ who loved me.
Sometimes we're having our own little pity party because life didn't go the way we thought it was going to go. You didn't get the promotion and your best friend did. You didn't win the thing that you wanted to win. You didn't get the house that you wanted to get. Things haven't turned around yet. You were counting on something to happen by the age of 30. It didn't happen. And now you're trying to figure out, like, when is that going to happen? Has God forgot about me? And you're laying on the ground. God's saying, get up. Get up. There's still victory in front of you. You haven't preached your best sermon. You haven't sang your best song. You haven't seen your greatest miracle. Stop acting like your life is over just because it didn't go the way you planned. How many people have stopped short of the victory that God has for them? Because of the pain they've walked through, the divorce, they got let go of a company. Someone left them. The doctors gave them the report and said, this is your final vision for your life. No, it's just a temporary setback. You could change that thing. You can change what's going on in your life. You have the power to respond with victory. You don't have to respond with defeats. Like if you've lost someone and you think their prayer up in heaven is, I just pray that they stay miserable, angry, mad, depressed, lonely, frustrated, pushing everybody away from them, mad at God, mad at life. That's not their prayer. They're cheering you on from heaven saying, don't you throw in the towel. I need you to finish in victory, Dad. I need you to finish in victory, Mom. You weren't born to live in misery. You were born to live in victory. Like living for Jesus is not meant to be burdensome, frustrating, angry, discouraging. God called you to live in victory. 2 Corinthians says he leads us into triumphant victory. He leads us from glory to glory, from strength to strength. He wants us to be an aroma of victory wherever we go.